Incredible blind date, single mom discovered the hidden billionaire behind his simple facade. Sarah wiped her brow as she navigated the final shift of a grueling week at Maplewood General Hospital. Each patient and every emotional burden piled onto her shoulders, leaving her weary and unfulfilled. The demanding responsibilities of motherhood loomed like a shadow. At home, her two spirited children buzzed around demanding help with homework, playful bickering, and bedtime stories overdue, pressing against the fragile balance she had tried to maintain. Romance felt like an ancient echo, so distant it barely registered. When her well-meaning friend nudged her toward an unexpected blind date, she hesitated. What connection could possibly bridge the chasm of exhaustion and expectant joy? Yet, as the thought lingered, loneliness clawed at her heart. Fate would twist the knife again, but first, she arranged her schedule around the looming date, slipping into a pair of well-loved jeans and hoping for a moment of respite from the relentless demands of her life. With a tenuous smile, she stepped into the dimly lit diner, attempting to shake away the doubt hanging heavy on her mind. Jake arrived soon after, an unassuming presence clad in faded plaid with an old pickup truck resting outside, ground-level comfort ooze radiating from him. She found solace in this unadorned honesty reflected through shared stories and laughter. Here was a man who felt relatable in his struggles, his genuine demeanor inviting her to let go of her burdens, however briefly. But as they spoke, Sarah's initial ease began to teeter when the truth of Jake's lavish upbringing loomed nearby, shadowing their charming conversation. Although he skirted around the heavy talk of wealth, she sensed an unvoiced complexity. Just as they began to exchange deeper thoughts, the laughter broke with an unexpected interruption. Sarah froze as she caught snippets of conversation just nearby. Faces blurred, the words pierced through. A childhood friend's casual remark hinted that Jake was more than the simple man sitting across from her, he was a billionaire, rich enough to sidestep life's pressures. The revelation churned her insides, like a storm swallowing the last remnants of her joy. How could he possess so much wealth yet feel so genuine? Waves of insecurity crashed over her as she confronted age-old beliefs about money and attraction. Who was she, a single mother working tirelessly, to entertain affection for someone tied to such privilege? Struggling against racing thoughts, a tempest brewed within her, daunting and relentless. Would he dare invite her into a world she barely understood? Would their differences splinter the fragile connection they were forming? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Yet the evening spiraled further as Jake's phone erupted with distressing news, dragging him back into a life steeped in responsibilities he tried so hard to escape. As he grappled with familial expectations, Sarah felt the draw of her heart against society's judgment. Would she dare step into the chaos aligning them? Struggling with acute awareness of what lay ahead, she felt the weight of decisions carving a path through her true desires. The line between admiration and loyalty blurred, wrestling her emotions tighter, constricting her breath. How could she stand at this precipice, yearning for love yet fearful of what it meant to engage with someone so different? The unyielding question haunted her, whispering through the silent pulse of uncertainty, could she embrace this unfolding connection and redefine her worth, or would fear keep her shackled within her ordinary confines? The diner's ambience faded as Sarah's thoughts cascaded into uncertainty. Jake's tension showed through the crinkle of his brow as he adjusted his focus on the ringing phone, the warmth of their earlier exchange dissipating into a brittle silence. As he answered, his expression shifted. It was like watching the sun plunge behind thick clouds, leaving behind an oppressive gloom. Sarah's heart raced not only from the abruptness of his response but from the simmering trepidation for what this interruption might mean. Should she let herself care? Her mind skittered through potential outcomes. She wanted to be a partner, not an obligation. She couldn't help but wonder if his world would wrap around hers like an iron guise, smothering her spark in its weight. While he spoke, words hurried and indistinct, the weight of her own reality pressed down harder. Torn between the magnetic pull of the unknown and the steady comforts of her everyday life, she wrestled with visions of their futures merging. A flicker of resolve ignited within her. Why couldn't she be part of his world, and just as impressively, why couldn't he be part of hers? Clinging to the belief that they could exist across the chasm of their differences both filled her with courage and left her feeling exposed. Sarah's fingers danced nervously around the edge of the table, a small drumroll amplifying the squelch of the uncertainty enveloping her ambitions. What was it she truly craved? Independence, adventure, a sense of belonging. These desires clashed with the role of just a mom she had comfortably worn for years. Perhaps it was time to shatter that mold. "That was my sister," Jake replied, his tone strained as he hung up. "She needs help with the family business. I promised I'd go by tomorrow." The weight of unfulfilled dreams hung in the air as he glanced at her, searching for understanding in her eyes. "I see." The trepidation in Sarah's voice betrayed her heart. Noticing the retreat within him, she found her own insecurities echoing back. Was this the moment she could challenge her fears? The question precipitated into an impulse, unguarded but laden with resolve. "You mentioned wanting to escape, if only for a few hours. Why not take a chance? Let's go for an adventure. Just you and me, a real distraction." Caught by her sudden energy, Jake's eyes widened. The hesitation cracked, giving way to tentative curiosity. "An adventure?" he echoed, the suggestion pulling him from the heaviness of his burdens. "Yes, a chance to remind ourselves that we're not only who we're expected to be." Her voice was steady now, strengthened by a resolve she didn't quite understand herself. The air crackled with possibility as she laid it on the line. This punchy request danced on the edges of his rich world and her humble existence. She was tired of viewing moments through the lens of skepticism and insecurity. Every heartbeat echoed her desire for change. He hesitated, and in that delicate pause, Sarah felt her heart tethered to vulnerability yet straining with ambition. Would he meet her halfway, surpassing expectations sown by wealth and societal pressures? Would they weave something extraordinary together, or would they retreat back to the lives predefined by their histories? The prospect of an adventure lay tantalizingly in reach, yet shadows lingered. It was a cliff they stood upon, uncertainty looming and wonder beckoning. Internal convictions battled, the longing for connection clashed with fear of disappointment. The path before them narrowed, forcing her to confront the thin line between daring adventure and her familiar, cautious life. In that split second, the choice loomed larger than either had anticipated. Like the thud of a drum, the moment held its breath, waiting to unravel, reflecting Sarah's simmering scream of resolve. Could she redefine what love looked like for her, or would she settle for the fears that lingered in every corner of her heart? The moment felt monumental. The decision danced on the precipice of time. What formation would the next minutes take? Would they reshape their fates together, or would disappointment pull her back yet again? The silence drew around them, thickening the air as Sarah's invitation hung there, vibrant and alive. She could see the conflict flickering in Jake's gaze, the indecision casting shadows across his features, but there was something else brewing beneath the hint of a spark, an instinct pulling him toward her suggestion. "All right," he finally replied, his voice steadying. "An adventure it is." Relief washed over Sarah, tinged with excitement, and she felt as if she was momentarily untethered from the nagging doubts that often clouded her thoughts. Could this simple decision burgeon into something transformative? Was this the leap into the unknown she needed? They decided on a road trip into the nearby mountains, punctuated by fleeting moments of laughter that bridged the distance between their lives. With Jake at the wheel, his eyes glimmers of resolve, Sarah let herself dream only of the mountains and the fresh air waiting for them, not the expectations pressing against her chest. The drive unfolded in layers, each twist revealing scenic vistas that felt almost reminiscent of fledgling hope. With each passing mile, she could feel her self-imposed limitations loosening their grip. The scenery outside the window reflected her emerging courage, true and raw. In the midst of their shared laughter, she caught snippets of Jake's stories, the family business, the dreams he once had of forging his own path. They were like shards of glass glinting in the sunlight, illuminating corners of his soul she had yet to explore. Was he also wrestling with the weight of expectations? "Why didn't you ever pursue that dream?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake's hands tightened around the steering wheel. "It felt like I had obligations to meet. But honestly, if I could go back, would I?" Eyes focused ahead, he lost himself in thought. A moment took root between them, layered with the vulnerability of unspoken truths. Sarah's heart thudded, she understood that feeling all too well. Shifting the conversation, she shared snippets of her own ambitions, dreams once flickering faintly, overshadowed by the daily grind of routine responsibilities. To her surprise, Jake listened intently, his interest palpable. With the changing landscape passing by, she no longer felt like a mere shadow of herself, she was a capable woman unveiling layers of resilience honed by time and experience. When they reached a picturesque overlook, she dared to step outside her comfort zone and suggested they take a hike. "Let us chase something, let us see what we can discover." Together, they began the trek, and the world around them melted into stunning panoramas. As they climbed higher, encased by the whispering pines and the rustling of leaves, Sarah felt a rush of exhilaration. This was life. But with the thrill came an unexpected wave of introspection. What lay beneath her yearning for adventure? Was it merely escapism or a genuine pursuit for authenticity? As they reached the summit, breathless from both the hike and sharing unfiltered thoughts, Sarah held her gaze on the horizon, contemplating her place in it. Then, amidst the beauty and connection, one truth crystallized: she had let the shadows of doubt dictate her choices for too long. This adventure, this unfolding moment with Jake, was more than a fleeting distraction, it was a challenge to reshape her narrative. As they stood together, words spilling from Jake about his ambitions that now felt even more relatable, a loud crack from the bushes startled them both. A rustling noise unfurling like a sudden storm interrupted their moment. They turned to investigate, the weight of anticipation heavy in the air, almost palpable. What would emerge from the darkness? A wild animal, or perhaps something else? The unknown hung there, bridging a gap between their shared moment and the reality waiting on the other side of the trail. Sarah could feel the tension building, urging her to confront whatever came next. Would it propel their conversation on dreams or signify threats lurking in the shadows? The rustling intensified, snapping the fragile thread of their shared moment. Anxiety seeped into Sarah's core while curiosity propelled her forward. Was this the moment that would frame her newfound boldness? "Do you want to check it out?" Jake asked, his voice steady, yet there was an edge of uncertainty that crept in, betraying his calm demeanor. Sarah weighed her options. She could retreat into caution, wrap herself in the familiar, or step into the unknown, embracing whatever revelation awaited her. "Let us see," she replied, the thrill coiling in her stomach. They moved cautiously toward the noise, every crackle of leaves underfoot amplifying her heartbeat. A moment passed where everything felt heightened, her nerves buzzed, and an electric energy coursed through her veins. As they neared the bushes, something scurried out, startling them both. It was only a small fox, darting across the trail, yet Sarah felt a rush of disappointment mixed with exhilaration. There was nothing dangerous lurking, just a curious creature embodying freedom. "Looks like it was just a little guy," Jake chuckled, though Sarah noted the relief in his voice. She opened her mouth to echo his laughter, but something deeper pulsed beneath the realization that their moment of interruption had shifted her perspective again. "Hey, can I ask you something?" she said, a hesitant tone slipping into her words. "Sure," Jake replied, his attention fully hers now. "What do you think holds us back from pursuing our dreams?" The question hung heavy between them. Jake furrowed his brow, contemplating. "Fear," he finally said, his voice softer. "Fear of failure, fear of judgment." Even fear of success. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the connection between them solidified. The mountain air felt charged, and with it, a nascent understanding that they were standing at the precipice of their true selves. The emotional shields they had built began to erode. What if we could just try? Sarah suggested, inspired by a sudden surge of daring. With no expectation, just trying. Trying sounds good, he said, surprising her with his openness. But what do you want to try? Joy flickered within Sarah. This felt less like a conversation and more like a pact. I want to find clarity in my work. I want to break free of this cycle I've been stuck in. Jake regarded her closely, his expression shifting to observation. And I want to explore what it really means to follow my own path, he admitted. To stop letting fear dictate my choices. Introspection hung between them, seemingly drawing them even closer, but Sarah also sensed an undercurrent of vulnerability. This was not just about discovery, it felt like sharing their fears laid bare. Before she could respond, Jake abruptly glanced over her shoulder. Do you see that? He pointed to a distant clearing, where sunlight flickered through the trees like a beacon. What is it? She shifted, her curiosity piqued anew. Looks like something interesting, he replied. Want to check it out? Sarah inhaled sharply, her adventurous spirit propelled by a brewing excitement. This was more than a hike, it was an expedition toward liberation, where possibility leaped to the surface. Let us go. She exclaimed, thrill coursing through her again. As they trudged toward the light, Sarah began to consider the seismic shifts underway within her. She could feel a palpable change looming, a promise of transformation. This journey, both physical and metaphorical, was just beginning. But within the clarity also lay a creeping realization that with newfound exploration came responsibility. She had to confront her fears but also be prepared to act on the discoveries she was making about herself. Would she be ready for what waited on the other side of that sunlight-drenched clearing? The dense woods enveloped them, but Sarah felt a steady pulse of determination anchoring her. Each step forward was more than just movement, it was a commitment to confront everything hidden in those shadows, the shadows that had so long dictated her narrative. As the sunlight grew closer and her heart raced with anticipation, she paused, a shiver of uncertainty slipping in. What would these new realizations demand of her? The moment pressed forward, and the weight of her unfulfilled potential began whispering insistently. What could lie ahead to embrace or shy away? The world was ready to reveal what awaited them, waiting to challenge both their choices and convictions. As they reached the clearing, sunlight cascaded through the branches, illuminating the vibrant wildflowers swaying in the gentle breeze. The shift from the shadowy woods to this bright expanse felt like stepping into an entirely new realm, one filled with potential and promise. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she wrapped her mind around this simple yet profound contrast. Wow, she murmured, drawn in by the beauty surrounding them. It didn't compare to the sterile confines of her office or the routines that had confined her for so long. This was freedom, raw and unfiltered, beckoning her to step forward. Jake, standing beside her, seemed equally affected. He scanned the clearing, his gaze full of intrigue. This feels like a hidden world waiting for us to explore it. She laughed softly, but beneath the laughter swirled a deeper realization. The beauty in front of her was more than mere scenery, it mirrored the inner beauty she yearned to uncover in herself. Sarah felt ignited, a spark of determination flickering alive within. I want to create something out of this, she said, surprising herself with the conviction behind her words. Maybe a project that reflects who I am. Something meaningful. Like what? Jake asked, folding his arms as if contemplating the weight of her declaration. Taking a moment to collect her thoughts, Sarah suddenly envisioned an art installation that blended nature with social commentary, something that confronted the mundane existence she had long endured. Perhaps an exhibition. Using photography or mixed media to express invisible struggles. My journey, our journeys. Jake's brow nodded as he considered her words. You've got a lot of passion behind that idea. But how do you plan to start? A jab of doubt punctured her enthusiasm. Was she merely fantasizing again? I don't really know, she admitted, vulnerability creeping in. I've been stuck for so long in a cycle of safety and comfort. Starting something like that feels daunting. He nodded, recognizing her struggle. But that's the first step, don't you think? Identifying the barrier is crucial. What about the fear of judgment you mentioned? Maybe if I just do it for myself first. She suggested, mulling over Jake's earlier insights. If fear could control her, why not flip the narrative? What if I created it without intending to showcase it? Just to explore what it means to me? His expression brightened. Exactly. It's about the journey and figuring out what you want to express. With each exchange, Sarah felt emboldened by the articulation of her desires. The conversations with Jake had shifted something within her. She began to visualize who she might become, unshackled from the expectations that had loomed for years. But what about you? She inquired, sensing an eagerness to reciprocate the exploration. How do you plan to pursue your path? Jake hesitated, his eyes drifting to the horizon. I've always wanted to write, to tell stories that matter, but I always held back. Maybe it's time to finally take that leap without worrying about the results. Writing could be an incredible outlet for you, Sarah encouraged, feeling the weight of their shared vulnerabilities. Just pour out your thoughts. That's how you find your voice. His smile widened, a flicker of hope igniting in his gaze. Yeah, I guess it is. As they stood in the sun-drenched clearing, Sarah felt a powerful connection to both Jake and herself emerging. This spontaneous adventure was less about the hike and more about discovering the courage to reclaim their narratives. The burden of expectation that had once loomed heavy began to feel lighter, as if the sunlight itself could heal their wounds. But beneath that light lay shadows. Unanswered questions loomed large. Was she prepared to face the scrutiny of herself and others? Could she navigate her ambitions without succumbing to the fear that had haunted her? Those thoughts weighed heavily as they lingered in the warmth of that moment, a pivotal point where action had to follow conviction. She knew it was time to step forward, putting her newfound determination to the test, yet the nagging uncertainties rattled her spine. Let's make a pact, then, Sarah proposed, voice steadying as resolve fortified her. We carve out time every week to pursue our passions, no matter how small. No backing down. Jake's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Agreed. The only way to face fear is by walking straight into it. With that commitment forged in the sunlight, Sarah felt a charge of excitement coursing through her veins. The path ahead promised challenges, yes, but equally it beckoned with transformative potential. As she stood in that clearing, an awareness settled in. To seize the unknown, she must be willing to confront her fears directly, not with avoidance but with a determined heart. But as they moved to leave the clearing, a low rumble echoed through the trees. A storm was brewing on the horizon. Would their newfound commitment withstand the oncoming challenges, or would the tempest of doubt threaten to wash away their aspirations? With a renewed sense of purpose ignited in her, Sarah took a deep breath as she and Jake began their descent from the clearing. The shadows of uncertainty crept back in, whispering doubts into the edges of her mind. The rumble of thunder in the distance felt like a warning, a reminder of the unpredictable challenges that lay ahead. Yet, rather than retreating, she clenched her fists, feeling the weight of her determination settle firmly in place. The week following their pact was tumultuous. Each day felt stretched by the drumbeat of her harsh self-critique. Sitting in her small, sparsely decorated apartment, the sterile confines of her reality began to seep into her thoughts, fueling her fears. In the quiet of the evening, she would stare at the blank canvas propped against the wall, its pristine surface reflecting her internal conflict. What if she poured out her soul only to be met with apathy or, worse, ridicule? This internal battle raged, with every ounce of her being trembling at the prospect of failure. Yet, the promise she'd made to Jake lingered, a beacon of commitment amidst the storm. Taking a deep breath, Sarah picked up her camera. It felt foreign in her hands after being tucked away for too long, but with a trembling resolve, she stepped outside. The world hummed with life, and for the first time, she noticed the vibrant palette around her, the fluttering leaves, the flitting birds, the laughter of children playing in the park. Each moment was an opportunity, a story waiting to unfold. On the third day of her self-imposed challenge, she faltered. A notification pinged on her phone, an invitation to a colleague's gallery opening. Her heart raced, an anxious thrum that surged as she stared at the polished invitation. Part of her wanted to attend, yet another part recoiled in fear, terrified of facing those who had critiqued her work in the past. They were a reminder of the insecurities that had dogged her, lurking like specters in the corners of her mind. The very thought of judgment was suffocating. But Jake's words echoed through her thoughts, "It's about the journey." Wouldn't missing this chance be allowing fear to control her once more? On an impulsive whim, she decided to attend, reasoning that perhaps embracing discomfort was part of her artistic exploration. Arriving at the gallery amid a thrumming crowd, her heart thudded against her chest. The art on the walls seemed both haunting and mesmerizing, evoking emotions she hadn't felt in years. Each piece told a story, a testament to the struggles and joys of being human, a mirrored reflection of the very project she hoped to create. As she wandered through the crowd, she couldn't shake the feeling of being an imposter, her heart whispering that everyone else belonged while she was a mere observer. And then she spotted him, a fellow artist from her past, someone whose critique had stung deep and long. He roamed the gallery confidently, sharing sharp insights with others. Panic gripped her, summoning thoughts of inadequacy and the nagging voice that questioned her worth. With a resolve that surprised even herself, Sarah stepped outside, seeking a moment of stillness beneath the dimming sky. In solitude, she closed her eyes, letting the chill breeze wash over her, grounding her anger and disappointment. It wasn't enough to confront the fear, she needed to rise above it. The weeks ahead would test her resolve, but now she felt a fire within her, a fierce determination to not just flinch away from confrontation with herself or others. Jake's voice echoed, urging her to speak her truth, to not shy away from exploring the beauty intertwined with the struggle. As she opened her eyes, the storm clouds shifted and began to part, revealing patches of sky. Sarah's path was uncertain, but her heart thrummed with a newfound clarity. The first steps of her journey towards authenticity had commenced. But just as she began to find her footing, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Jake. His expression was serious, as though he'd sensed her turmoil from afar. "Sarah," he said, voice steady yet urgent. "We need to talk. There's something important I have to share with you." The depth of his tone sent a ripple of uncertainty through her. Was he ready to confront his own fears, or did his revelation hold more gravity? The realization tangled with trepidation, tightening the knot in her stomach, as Sarah braced herself for what came next. As Jake moved closer, Sarah felt the weight of his presence, a comforting yet unsettling mix of familiarity and apprehension. The flickering lights of the gallery behind them created a surreal aura, blurring the boundaries between reality and the chaos orbiting her thoughts. "Is everything okay?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. But uncertainty dripped through every word, and the question hung heavily in the air. Jake hesitated, as though searching for the right words within himself. "No, it's not about me. It's about you." He paused, and Sarah's heart raced as she braced for the impact of whatever revelation was to follow. "I've noticed how hard you've been on yourself," he continued, his gaze unwavering. "You've been hiding your true talent, and it's time to confront that." His honesty pierced her defenses. She felt vulnerable under his scrutiny, yet something inside her stirred a desire for acknowledgement, for validation. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, the truth tumbling out before her brain could process the ramifications. Jake stepped closer, leaning in slightly, his voice softer but insistent. "Ready or not, avoiding it isn't going to make it disappear." You have a gift, Sarah. It's more than just the art, it's the stories behind it. You can't experience them if you only stay in the shadows. His words resonated, and she felt the fragmented pieces of her self-doubt slowly quake in the wake of his encouragement. The storm inside her began to dissipate as she recognized the truth in what he said. But a deeper question gnawed at her, the question of identity, the unmasking of her true self beyond her art. Maybe you're right, she whispered, contemplating the risk of vulnerability. But what if I fully embrace this, and it still doesn't lead anywhere? Jake shrugged, a hint of amusement flashing across his face. We rarely know where the path will take us. Sometimes it's not about the destination, but about discovering who we are along the way. His perspective sparked an internal conflict within Sarah. Was success measured solely by the accolades of others, or could it be defined by her authentic self-expression? Torn between the fear of failure and the excitement of self-discovery, she felt the sharp edge of uncertainty hone into clarity. In that moment, a revelation ignited within her. Her journey needed to be traced with honesty, even if that honesty laid bare her imperfections. Each photograph she took, each story she envisioned could cultivate a visceral connection to her multifaceted self. Okay, she finally said, her voice imbued with a newfound determination. Let us do this. Let us explore the stories worth telling. A smile spread across Jake's face, and for the first time, she felt less alone in the process. This was the collaboration she craved, shared experiences in which they both could learn and grow. I have something to show you, he said, his energy shifting. He gestured toward the gallery's front entrance. There's a project I've been working on, and it might be just what you need to kickstart your journey. It's a bit unconventional, but I think it could help you find your voice. Curiosity fluttered in Sarah's chest, mingling with excitement, but shadows of hesitation lingered. She sensed there was more to uncover, not just regarding the project, but about herself. Unconventional, huh? You can't just drop a bomb like that and not tell me about it first, she quipped, though her mind raced at the possibility. What's the catch? Jake grinned, stepping back into the electric atmosphere of the gallery. No catch. Just a chance to push yourself and to find what lies on the other side of fear. Trust me, it's worth it. The flutter of anticipation was intoxicating, luring her toward the unknown. As they moved back inside to the mingling crowd of artists and enthusiasts, Sarah felt a subtle shift occur within her. This was not just a momentary impulse, but an inflection point in her life. It was time for her to confront the barriers she had erected, step into her identity with courage, and explore the reality of her own artistry. Suddenly, she spotted the artist from earlier, the one who had once tainted her confidence. The knot in her stomach tightened again, but this time it felt different, more like an invitation to engage, rather than a threat. But just as she prepared to navigate through the crowd, a shout erupted from the other room, and a hush fell over the space. In the stillness, a voice echoed, gripping her attention tightly. We need to settle this now once and for all. The air thickened with tension, and Sarah realized this confrontation might extend beyond mere art critiques. Fear and determination collided within her as she took a step forward. What was on the line, and how would she maneuver this unexpected pivotal moment? The journey back to herself was about to plunge headfirst into the depths of uncertainty, and she wasn't sure if she was strong enough to face it. The crowd appeared to draw in around Sarah, the murmurs of conversation fading into a low hum as her focus honed in on the source of the disturbance. It was a heavyweight clash of egos, an artist she both admired and feared. This was a pivotal moment, and beneath the thrum of anxiety, a pulse of necessity drove her forward. If she was going to embrace her artistic voice, she needed to dismantle the barrier that had held her back for so long. Let us go see what this is about, Jake urged, clearly noticing the turmoil in her expression. He placed a reassuring hand on her back, guiding her toward the ruckus. It felt surreal. Every step was heavy with the weight of the expectation, the whirlwind of excitement intermingled with fear. As they descended upon a small gathering, Sarah's heart raced. The confrontation at the center was between the vocal artist and another she recognized. The latter looked effortlessly confident, his arms crossed and a half-smirk resting on his lips. This wasn't merely about a debate over styles or creative views, this was a clash of reputations, of self-worth laid bare for all to witness. "Look, they're just afraid of being called out," the assailant said, voice dripping with arrogance. "Art is a reflection of who we are. If you're not willing to bleed on the canvas, should you even call yourself an artist?" Her teeth clicked together, anger bubbling beneath her skin. The words burned like acid, resonating with the very fears she struggled to shake off. It was a dismissal of authenticity, a punch to everything she had been grappling with. In that moment, confronting the aggressor became less about them and more about her. She felt pushed to redefine her narrative. Is that what art is to you? A competition for the loudest voice? She heard herself asking, rising from the quieter recesses of her mind. The crowd turned toward her, blinking in surprise. She had said it, and while dread washed over her at having spoken up, exhilaration surged to counterbalance that fear. This was her space, that realization was power. "I simply believe that true art comes from honest vulnerability," she continued, each word firming her stance. "Baring your soul and showing your imperfections takes bravery. It's not about proving who's better." Her voice gained strength, boosting her confidence further. "It's about connection, experience, and the stories that shape us." The initial shock transformed into an animated exchange. The atmosphere electric, ignited by passion rather than mere accusations. Jake stood beside her, pride evident in his gaze. She felt her voice wrapping around her insecurities, snatching them away. The shadows that loomed earlier began to dissipate. But as the crowd responded with a mix of nods and murmurs of agreement, self-doubt skittered back beneath the surface. Her challenge had ignited a fire, but would it be enough to obliterate the vestiges of criticism etched into her past? The tension remained palpable, and the artist she directed her courage at glared at her, as though trying to unravel her newfound resolve. "What do you think qualifies you to talk about bravery in the art world?" he shot back, an edge to his voice. She took a breath, the question landing heavy, like a weight on her chest. Maybe she wasn't the established artist he was, but the authenticity of her experience was just as valid. "Perhaps that's it," she replied, holding his gaze. "I'm still learning what it means to be an artist, and that journey is a testament to growth." The confrontation had unexpectedly birthed a transformative moment, yet her heart raced with fear that this vulnerability could lead them back to doubts. Would the crowd turn back against her? A lingering question tightened in her chest. What were the stakes if she failed to convince them? Just as she prepared to delve deeper into this delicate balance, the original shout echoed again from the edge of the gathering. An unfamiliar voice, one that promised confrontation beyond words. "Enough. We need to decide who really belongs here." Sarah's pulse quickened. The atmosphere bristled with tension that could erupt at any moment. The path ahead appeared fraught with risk, but she was no longer willing to retreat into the shadows. If she was to uncover the essence of her artistry, this was where the real challenge began: confrontation, identity, and the struggle for authenticity. What was she prepared to lose in order to stand her ground and redefine herself? The stakes had never felt higher, and as the crowd's anticipation hung in the air like a fragile glass, she knew the next steps would be crucial. What awaited her on this journey toward empowerment and artistry, imbued with uncertainty, stood unknown yet undeniably necessary. Her heart thundered in her chest, the chaotic buzz of the gathering colliding with the stillness within her mind. As the voice's command reverberated, she felt an instinctive drive not just to protect herself but to advocate for the authenticity she believed in. Each glance exchanged in the crowd seemed to amplify her resolve. She was becoming part of something larger than herself, tied to the world of art she both revered and questioned. "Decide who belongs here," she echoed, almost incredulously. Her voice steadied as she pressed on, riding the wave of newfound courage. "Art isn't a club with an entry fee, it's an eternal exploration. Why limit the narrative? Every artist brings a piece of their journey to the canvas. The aggressor, momentarily taken aback, smirked with an air of dismissal. Is that your defense? Just because you feel included doesn't mean your work has depth. Your journey is merely an excuse. A surge of heat coursed through Sarah. That smugness was the very barrier she needed to dismantle. And yet, countless artists derive power from their vulnerability and experiences. The risk is at the essence of creativity. You should know that, or perhaps you've grown comfortable hiding behind bravado. A soft murmur passed through the crowd, a current of agreement sparking in the air. Uncertainty mingled with excitement as she realized that whatever came next was entirely in her hands. This could either be the moment she crumbled or the moment she truly stood in her power. The artist frowned, his confidence shaken but present. Truth isn't enough. Talent is what separates us. What have you created that speaks for itself? The weight of his question struck a chord deep within her. Once again, self-doubt slithered through her mind. The pieces she painted often felt like fragments of her spirit interwoven, yet she had always feared they weren't enough, too raw, too unrefined. Still, she reminded herself that this was her moment. I have created pieces that capture my essence, even when they feel unfinished. You may have success, but that doesn't equal authenticity. Real art doesn't shy away from imperfection. Her voice, shaking at first, grew stronger as she spoke. I am a work in progress, just like my art, and that is something worth sharing. As silence enveloped the crowd, Sarah's eyes locked with someone she recognized, a theater director known for their unconventional projects, who seemed to contemplate her words. Was it possible that the faintest glimmer of understanding resonated through the observer's steely exterior? Jake leaned closer, his presence like a warm flame amidst the brewing storm. You did it, Sarah, he whispered, pride radiating from him. You found your voice. But even as adrenaline coursed through her veins, doubts continued to swirl just beneath the surface, the fear of being dismissed, of losing this fragile sense of self-worth she was forging against her own insecurities. And yet, here she was, challenging the very foundations of the dialogue with an authenticity she couldn't once fathom grasping. Just then, the tension snapped as the original dissenting voice rose again. Then maybe we should amplify those voices that actually speak to us. Let us see what you can do, artist. Laughter echoed, a blend of mockery and challenge. The crowd's energy shifted noticeably, and Sarah recognized that this was the crossroads. Would she cower or rise to the challenge? What lay ahead required bravery beyond mere words, an opportunity to etch her mark into both her art and her identity. Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer to the center amidst the lingering uncertainty. The moment demanded more than mere interpretation, it asked for action. Was she ready to fully unveil herself and her art in a way that could lead to acceptance or more rejection? As anticipation filled the air, she realized her journey was far from complete. It was time to showcase her truth, but at what cost? Would she risk everything only to find herself aligning with failure again? The stakes loomed larger, and she could feel the gravity of her decision pulling her in. There was no turning back now. In that moment, she made a choice, but the consequences of her declaration still lingered on the horizon. What awaited her within the unknown depths of this battlefield, where her courage met the echoes of mocking laughter? Sarah braced herself, ready to challenge not only the audience but also her very essence. The true test of her artistic identity was on the precipice. As the atmosphere thickened with anticipation, Sarah recognized that she was teetering on the edge of a defining moment. This was about more than just a debate, it was a reckoning with her own insecurities and aspirations. Placing a steely determination on her heart, she focused on the pulsating crowd, their expectations hanging in the air like smoke. Everything she faced her fears of inadequacy, the loneliness of being a single mother, and the relentless doubts about her artistic worth culminated at this precise juncture. She glanced at Jake, who radiated an unyielding support as if silently asserting that her voice mattered. Drawing strength from that, she prepared to share not just her art but the fabric of who she was, unfiltered and raw. "I am not afraid to stand here and admit that I am still figuring out my voice as an artist," she began, her tone firm and unwavering. "But that journey matters. Every brushstroke, every photograph, is a piece of my experience, flawed yet significant. Art deserves to be an exploration of the self, a journey woven from vulnerability, and I refuse to hide behind a facade of perfection." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as she gained momentum, the weight of their scrutiny becoming an exhilarating rush rather than a burden. Each word spilled forth with conviction, a stirring symphony of emotions amplified by her passion. "We are more than our accolades, we are a tapestry of our histories, and it's those imperfections that resonate deeply." The contemptuous artist made a feeble attempt to interrupt, but Sarah pressed on, undeterred. "Art isn't a competition, it's a dialogue. Each piece I create speaks 1,000 stories, and maybe, just maybe, those stories deserve to be heard." Her voice throbbed with sincerity, capturing the attention of observers who leaned in, intrigued. In this exchange, she saw reflections of herself in the faces around her, artists undeniably in pursuit of their truths, each grappling with the insecurities that sometimes kept them shackled. As she spoke, her own hesitations grew faint. The relationship she fostered with her art began to illuminate a pathway not just for her but for those who craved authenticity. Fervor ignited within her as she shared particular moments, the raw photographs capturing fleeting emotions, the half-finished canvases layered with paint that echoed her unfinished journey. Each anecdote where she was unsure, scared, yet deeply alive painted a vibrant picture of resilience, manifesting her undeniable growth. When she concluded, silence enveloped the room. The challenge that had initially felt scary had transformed into an exploration of shared vulnerability. There was no denying the impact. Applause began to ripple through the crowd, swelling louder, reclaiming the space where self-doubt had once reigned. Jake's pride radiated next to her as he stepped forward, unearthing his own voice. "Sarah is right. A true artist defines their success not by accolades but by the authenticity they bring to their craft. I stand here today, emboldened by her courage. We should, as artists, empower one another rather than create hierarchies of talent based on arbitrary measures of success." His words acted as a catalyst, igniting the energy of the room. People began to engage, forming discussions about artistic integrity, the journey of becoming, and the sanctity of vulnerability. As the wave of acceptance coursed throughout the space, Sarah felt recognition wash over her. This was her triumph, stepping beyond the mire of self-doubt into clarity, refashioning her fears into exhilaration. She had become not just an observer but a participant in her own life, unearthing her voice louder than the shadows had ever permitted. Through the clatter of voices weaving together in the gallery, she caught the eye of the artist who had doubted her. Instead of contempt, there was something else, curiosity perhaps, a desire to understand. It filled her with a newfound strength, affirming that she was now beyond mere survival, she was thriving. In the aftermath of this introspective confrontation, deep-rooted insecurities crumbled. For the first time, Sarah emerged not just as a mother or an employee but as an artist with vision and purpose. She surrendered her fears, recognizing in them the catalysts of growth rather than mere obstacles. That night, she ventured home knowing her true achievements lay not in the applause of an audience but in the revelation of her spirit and the commitment to embracing her journey fully. As she settled into bed, she smiled, grateful for the adventures she hadn't just embarked on but also for those she had chosen to confront. The delicate balance of motherhood and artistry, once fraught and conflicted, now felt harmonized. The fleeting moments of joy now echoed in the everyday, no longer muted by caution as she embraced being more than just a single mother but an artist reclaiming her voice. Sarah closed her eyes, a sense of solid confidence pulsating within her. She dreamed of the future, a future ripe with possibilities where her art would reflect the woman she was becoming. With each breath, her spirit soared, released from the binding chains of expectation, fully committed to the limitless journey ahead. Now, here's your chance to embrace the transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is what drives this journey. Comment your reactions and theories about this empowering ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories will understand how essential it is to support this channel through these actions.